Welcome back, Red Spotters, and the show here on the Red Spotlight Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Soto, joined by my fellow agent David Francisco on another installment of our beloved Beyond the S.H.I.E.L.D. series, the weekly recap series where we talk about the last season, unfortunately, the last season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7. Today we will be recapping, oh my god, we're already there, Episode 8 of Season 7, blowing past the midway point of this final season. This is called After Before. And how we do it every single week, we start broad, tell about what about it that we liked or didn't like, and then we get into the episode, character by character, as well as some wonderful moments. You know, it's interesting, David, because there was actually quite a mixed reaction to this episode.
Really?
Yeah. Just, you know, full disclosure, and this really speaks to what a nuthead I am for this show. Not only do I watch the episode at least twice, you know, a week, but I also, you know, further indulge myself with other people's reaction channels on YouTube who follow this show and react to this show. And on top of that, there are, of course, the fan podcasts. There's the Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is on Dee's reviews channel on YouTube. There's also the Fantastic Geek podcast that has their Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series every week, their podcast review series every week, and so on and so forth, as well as written reviews, whether it be the Den of Geek, the UK edition, since the UK cares more about this show than the US. And that's true. Think about that. That's very true. It really pissed me off years ago, you never believe it, when IGN decided to stop reviewing the weekly episodes and then other outlets did, and I was like, go fuck yourself. And I felt like they did that well in advance of, I think, even the Season 5, because they just thought it was going to get canceled. So they were jumping on that bandwagon before they sank, but they didn't have to, it turns out. What was I saying? Oh yeah, sorry, this happens, the fucking tangents. So yeah, I've noticed there was a range of reaction to this episode, a little bit of mixed, even Blind Wave. There was some people who had mixed feelings about Yo-Yo in particular, in terms of conceptually how her arc was handled, and then as far as by execution, in terms of how it went. I generally have very positive marks on this episode. Again, I understand though where a lot of those viewpoints are coming from, and I am gonna bring them up, just so we have every point of view here. I mean, I think the most critical I'm gonna get, and it's hard because I thought this was a very good episode, you know, and I think you and I are on the same page on that. If we're going to start off with, this is, well, before I even get to that, I should clarify. So this episode primarily dealt with Elena, Yo-Yo, and you know, and May going to Afterlife in 1983, which is run by Daisy's mom, Jia-Ying, and they go to her to finally figure out what the issue is with Elena's powers. Because the Zephyr is literally about to explode into an endless atom throughout space and time. And first off, there's so many... Look, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has always said very proudly that while we don't have the ability to connect to the MCU, we can definitely mirror them, whether they like it or not. And a lot of this season has very much been mirroring Endgame, not just for the time travel aesthetic of it, but there's a lot of things that are very much echoing from key character moments from Endgame. And there's a lot in this episode. They may not be direct references, but they very much are mirroring things that happen in that episode. And one of the things that Endgame, I think to me the most important thing that Endgame did was the focus of our legacy characters, from Steve to Tony to Natasha, Thor. Those are our main four. They get the big character arcs in that movie and their conclusions basically as characters. And we're seeing that here. We're now in the back half of season 7, the last season, and we're now getting into a rotation of these wonderful episodes that are pushing the characters toward their final arcs. We just came off last week with it was mostly Deke, but Mac had some in there as well. And then here it's mostly Yo-Yo, of course, but May is involved here as well. So, and then next week it seems like it'll be Daisy with Coulson mixed in. So we're getting into a nice consecutive victory lap here. Not just with the show having fun, but then also pushing and giving more emphasis on these characters who, quite frankly, we're never going to see again.
Yeah.
Might never see again. Most likely we'll never see again. So I say from that standpoint, I'm very happy how this season is panning out. Practically on every level. And I feel you feel the same.
No, yeah, for sure. Like it's the ending. We need to know how they're going to end up in the end, and we also just we want a happy ending. We want a good ending at least, and
I mean, crossing our fingers, right? We have a show with a good ending for a change. Yeah,
and so I always love it when shows like focus on specific characters on specific moments on the final season at least, or at least like in the final movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this one was really, really cool for Yo-Yo because assuming if like they all live in the end, I could definitely see like a moment of her just running around in her speedster type of thing and saving people, but also working with Mac,
Right.
So
right. Yeah, I mean, part of the nature, at least for the character of Yo-Yo, it unlocked new possibilities that could further be pursued from a creative standpoint on Disney Plus, but let's not get our hopes up, right? When it comes to that regard. So on that level, I bring that up because one of the criticisms with this episode and with the nature of the back half of the season has been that there will be too many episodes in a row where the priority is advancing the characters' arcs instead of the overall plot of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's catch up with that real quick, because there seems to what is it?
No, I was just thinking about what you said, and
right. I mean that I bring that up as a critique. I don't agree with that, but I mean that's a point right there to make. But just so we give that point a fair view, let's talk about where we are in the plot. So it seems until we get to Afterlife, and again we're seeing how many times the team manages to win. There's still the Chronicoms just refuse to die.
Mm-hmm.
They just simply refuse to die because it's from the most that I've seen of not Yo-Yo and May at the Zephyr, they're all convinced the mission's over. Mm-hmm. They're all expecting to go home because the main Chronicom ship blew up, and I think that confirms that there was only that one ship then that had the ability to go back in time, which has not even been explained yet how they even found that out. We know that they had Fitz and Simmons' memories in the memory machine, but they never really explained how it was that they figured out how to go back in time. We know that the Zephyr uses the material from the Time Stone. Wait, no, that's the Infinity Stone. Sorry, the Time Monolith. I guess we're going to call that. Although they could use the Time Stone. No, that could be something else. If only, right? They use part of the Time Monolith to go back into the past, but we don't know how the Chronicoms established that, and it doesn't seem as if they've mass-produced the ability to do that because only one ship went back, and we know they have a whole armada. Probably already, like, no one seems to be mentioning that, at least. I mean, whatever present day in this timeline looks like, who knows anymore, considering how much things have changed. But at least from my angle, I expect the Chronicoms to have fully invaded at this point. I mean, they have the resources to do that, and they sent, or maybe they were holding off on that, and they just were, holding up at S.H.I.E.L.D. base until the time traveling unit was a success or not. Sybil is still active, and she's colluding with what's his name? Nathaniel Malik, who is basically turned into a Joker. Everyone keeps saying here, just rounding up Inhumans and doing it for the sake of chaos and yada, yada, yada.
Mhm.
So from that standpoint, we're not given a clear... I mean, we know ultimately what the Chronicoms want to do, but at this point, I don't know how they're going to accomplish or exactly what they're trying to achieve in the short term to get to the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I am. It's like, all right, so did Sybil use Nathaniel to contact more Hunter cells to come back? Were there other ships that had the ability to also time travel and they're going to come back as well? Is there a plan B that we're switching to, or a plan C even? So from the Chronicom's perspective, I don't know what they're going to hit us with next.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been very successful this season of kind of upending expectations with what their plans have been. You know?
Yeah. So yeah, I disagree with the whole that they're stopping the plot, I guess, to focus on just character moments.
Mm-hmm.
Even if like we don't fully know what the Chronicom's plan is, you know that the team is still dealing with consequences of messing with time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's still kind of even more important because Nathaniel is alive. Like, who knows whether he wanted to cause chaos or, you know, still build up Hydra like bigger than what they did and bigger than they were what we seen before. That was weird.
Words are
time
hard.
travel. I still think that's still important to the plot, though. It's
Right.
the consequences of what they created, but also preserving the timeline. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even though they decided to break the status quo or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
the plot is still stopping the Chronicoms, obviously, and kind of restore or at least manage the timeline.
I agree. One thing I forgot to point out last week, and it drew a little bit of questions from people when Mac was berating Deke in the beginning of the episode for like ripples, not waves, you know, kind of like unloading on him for like disobeying his order to kill Wilfred Malik. I think I think what was inferred is that Mac was very emotional at that moment and was pissed off, and when you're pissed off, you kind of unload on whoever's closest to you, which is why I think he left the Zephyr in the first place.
Yeah.
In that instance. So it's not as I didn't perceive that as like Mac being a hypocrite. I just perceived it as him just being very emotionally destroyed by what happened.
Yeah.
In that instance, and I think that was very obvious with that because they have been picking and choosing what to do, right? So they saved Sousa, but they've also decided to conceal Hydra in some way because it seems as if the Project Insight aspect of this was limited only to the Malik lighthouse area, and that's it, because Stoner, from what I was aware of, was not told to eliminate Hydra, the remainder Hydra cells inside S.H.I.E.L.D. So they've been picking and choosing. I guess he knows Hydra's out there now. Maybe he'll do something. I don't know. Look, I don't know. That's just the thing about this. One other thing I forgot to mention, and I should have because the last 2 episodes had a lot of Mac. The actor who portrays Mac, Henry Simmons, turned 50 years old in the last 2 weeks.
Wait.
Henry Simmons, who plays Mac, director Mac McKenzie, turned 50.
Huh. Weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to chalk that up to timing or something, but there's that. And I've been meaning to address it, but I hadn't done so because my memory wouldn't allow it. There's so many things to cram into this area. And so on the other hand, we have the Zephyr itself, which is a consequence of their previous interactions with the Chronicoms. The missile did in fact damage the time machine, as it were, more so than we were led to believe originally. We see in the opening moments in the episode that they jumped several times to get to the point where Mac and Deke are at the end of last episode, which, they did. I think, from one of the things that they've never, I think, suffered in quality has been suspense. The first 10 minutes of this episode was a lot going on, but you felt the intensity kind of like a heartbeat, not just here, but throughout the episode, because they're kind of doing this race against time with the whole Yo-Yo trying to figure out what's going on with her to get back to the Zephyr. And it kind of is a little play of what Endgame did, right? So they have, Yo-Yo and May have more time to figure out their problem, and the team only has like 20 minutes before they basically go to hell. And also another bit of a clarify. So Fitz was controlling not just when the Zephyr would jump in time, as Gemma says, but he was also designating the exact locations by which they would go through time.
Mm-hmm.
So when they would land in in Nevada or New York, that would be intentionally. Basically, Fitz is the one who is inserting the coordinates, and I wonder if we've established this yet, because we've mentioned this, or it was mentioned a few weeks back that Fitz is in a location that is very close to the Chronocoms. Remind me, because it's been a while, and I know it was only 3 weeks ago, but it's still been a while. Were we under the impression that Fitz was somehow in the, I don't know, that white room where the Chronocoms meet?
Yeah, I was the one that I think I suggested that he's probably in there with Sybil or something somehow hiding.
Right. That would make most sense, I feel, because you would have the information at their disposal. And then also, is Fitz just waiting for them to meet back up with him? Does he have a way of making it to the Zephyr? We don't know the answers, obviously.
We don't know at all. Yeah, we won't know anything about like his side of the mission until we see him. So
yeah, which is imminent. Is imminent, from what I understand. But yeah, the Zephyr in and of itself was center stage with it, imploding, and the team trying to figure out what to do about it. Yeah, I like, again, I'm just putting some broad things out, and then we'll get into the meat, which was Yo-Yo.
Yeah.
I like how it was Daisy who off the bat was like, well, my mom, she can help you.
Yeah.
We're in 83.
No, yeah, I thought they were going to keep it a secret from her, or that since she was knocked out, she was going to be knocked out throughout the entire episode. But I like that bit, though, where they wake up Coulson and they're like, okay, we need to make a decision, and this could possibly end up making one of our teammates disappear. And I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah, but, off the bat, there are a lot of stakes. Continue.
Well, it seems like by the end of this episode, it seems like it's still on track. The time, I don't know, because we don't know how her parents met, did we? Or I'm sure there was a scene.
Well. There is some. Yes. This is one of those moments where there's a lot going in my mind, and I'm not sure where to start off first. I guess this is another one of those weird facts. Did you know that Jia Ying, the actress that plays Jia Ying, Daisy's mom, is actually married to an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. star?
Who?
Agent Davis, who we lost last season.
Oh, yeah. I kind of remember.
Did you already know this? Because I felt like I did, then I forgot, and I was like, wait, that's, yeah.
No, right? I didn't know, but he's the one that...
Davis is the one that died last season when he was possessed by Zell and he fell
onto
the concrete.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they meet on set, or were they married before?
To be honest with you, I don't know. They could have. They could have.
Yeah.
Davis has been a background character for like the beginning. So like, I mean, maybe, but I don't know. But another interesting connection. And speaking of families.
Wait.
Yeah.
Is he the one that always tells that like a story to every like agent he meets, and then
That's Davis.
Yeah.
That's
Do we know the
Davis.
story, or is it just always like we're always gonna see the people's reaction to it?
Yeah, we never knew.
Oh man, they should
Deke
like
would
answer
know.
that. They should answer that in the time travel. Oh my god, just like go back to it and like you see, Deke knows the story, so he's gonna be like, oh, "This is the story that he said."
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sick.
That would be fun. But there were some interesting, complications. I never thought we'd see Afterlife again. I never thought I'd see Jiaying again, but here we are. And more to it, we're adding in some elements that are fascinating. For one, Daisy has an older sister?
Yeah. I was gonna ask you that too, if they mentioned if she ever had one. Okay.
No, I would remember. No, this is completely brand new.
Okay.
You could think that perhaps this was a byproduct of the team messing with the past. But on the other hand, and this is where the exact timeline, it does pan out. Because, as I mentioned last time, Whitehall didn't cut Jiaying until like the late 80s, right after Daisy was born. It was mentioned that Jiaying and Kel were living in a village. Now, Jiaying is obviously leading Afterlife right here in the early 80s. I think it can be assumed that because they don't allow non-Inhumans to live at Afterlife, Jiaying removed herself for the time being to go live with Kel in a nearby village to raise their daughter at that point. I think it was mentioned at some point that Kel had come to China and then they had met Jiaying. And this was after... It's not clear, though, how Korra fits into it, but of course this must have been before the fact that this is before Cal was even in Jiaying's life. But no, that was never mentioned. That was never a point. You could argue that that was part of what contributed to Jiaying going dark, because if this was something that was in the original timeline, then Korra would have killed herself. If it wasn't for Nathaniel getting involved in that moment, Korra would have killed herself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shit.
So, and then there's also, it may also even bring more weight. If you recall way back in season 2, when Jiaying was telling Daisy the story of Katya, which was this mother who had put her daughter through the mist. This was the daughter that May killed in Bahrain because she was possessing all of these agents. And Jiaying, put that line, our people know all too well what a mother would do for her daughter. It wasn't just, now that we're adding more context to it, it wasn't just the fact that Katya was like the main example. People who have been around long enough know Jiaying was trying to do everything to keep them from basically killing her daughter, her first daughter. So there's a lot that they're playing with here. A lot of more weight that they're bringing to it. And again, I don't know how this is going to be resolved, because it seems as if we're going to see them again. We're going to see Jiaying and Gordon again somewhere, somehow. Yeah. But the problem is this. Afterlife is gone. Nathaniel kind of wrecked it. There now is a danger to where is Jiaying ever going to meet Cal? And if that doesn't happen...
Well, Jiaying left afterlife,
Right.
To so that she could meet him
Elsewhere.
during that time that they're gone.
Right.
Yeah, or I don't know. Maybe since they told her like not to stay hidden until they call her, maybe it's just gonna be the team, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, our team taking care of Malik, and then once it's safe, they'll call her back. But by that time, maybe she would have met Daisy's dad.
Or maybe this is a point where they may be cutting it close, but maybe she already knows him, and maybe that's where they went to go hide.
Maybe that too.
That could be one of them. But again, we also don't know when we're gonna what we're gonna see next, because next week's episode is definitely not gonna be on Earth, from what I've seen. So that's we don't know exactly what timeline we're gonna jump through next. We got to figure out what the hell is wrong with our time machine first before we even figure out what the hell when it is that we're gonna be next. But that is interesting, and yeah, I mean, I also love the way how they revealed it. When Korra and Jiaying were having that moment, and of course May used to great effect in so many ways this episode, believe me. But using her facial expressions to confirm that May was feeling a motherly feeling toward Korra, coming from Jiaying. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff there at Afterlife, and interesting to see where that's leading, where it's going. And I don't know where that's going. All I know is that, and I guess Nathaniel was basically just, his thing was, we're going to create chaos.
I mean, it could be his plan, or it could be Sybil's.
It is, yeah. So,
or there could be some other, what's the word, like, underlying plan.
Oh, wait, I just had a thought. What if Sybil is trying to replicate Ada's plan from the framework, where an inhuman caused an explosion, many people died, and they used society to coalesce against Inhumans, outlawing Inhumans. Basically, what if Sybil is trying to do what Ada did in the framework, and what she was trying to do when she got out of the framework, which is basically recreate the Hydra framework reality?
Oh, that could be it.
Because it could work. I mean, if the Inhumans are going to basically do an uprising, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how they're going to impose their will on humanity then. Maybe that's their kindness, that they'll allow humanities to exist, but only as being downtrodden. That could work.
Yeah, that could work.
That probably won't be
actually,
but it could.
I had a crazy idea in that they're trying to. They want to like replicate what Malik did, which is get his steal other Inhumans' powers, and like try to put it in their Chronicom bodies, because it's both. It's a real body, but also a robotic body. And I don't know. I'm sure there's like some way to.
I mean, if the Chronicoms get Inhumans' power, isn't that Inhuman powers? Isn't that game over?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it depends. It always depends on like what the bad guy's powers is.
Right. Right.
Because he had that one guy in that season. He like turned into like a blue giant hedgehog looking thing. I don't know what it was. So it's like, if it was something like that, then yeah, maybe they're screwed. But like other Inhumans, I'm sure the team could take them down. They've taken down Inhumans before. So
right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So let's go ahead and get into our Mayo episode. as people lovingly call them on social media, May and Yo-Yo, Mayo. How clever, right?
Yeah.
Some interesting aspects before we get into the narrative of it. It is rare, for most shows, but the episode was primarily led by women of color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where the emphasis was at. Different colors, by the way. And that's not usual, even today.
Mm-hmm.
That's very proactive. That's very progressive.
Yeah.
I think that's a much more meaningful gesture than going back and erasing episodes that had blackface from 10 years ago. Like trying to remove yourself. I'm sorry if I'm getting controversial. I'm just like, that's actually doing good. This right here by putting them front and center. And to me, it's like, you don't even notice it. But it's very much a play to, I think, speaking to the power of those two. Like, look, I think it was a brilliant move to put May and Yo-Yo on the same path together. And, it wasn't, because we know that when they were filming season 6, the ending was already written. And I'm almost sure they rewrote that ending, because in the middle of filming season 6, they were told, hey, you have 13 more episodes. Oh, okay, sure. So they had to basically write a 13 episode season while they were shooting midway through what was supposed to be, again, the last season. Like, damn. But if you think about it, Yo-Yo and May have kind of been on a similar path since the ending of season 5. Now, yes, it was kind of a rocky path, because it started with Yo-Yo killing Ruby at the end of season 5. And then there was now something in common that she had with May. Both of them having to make very difficult decisions for what they thought was the right thing to do while committing a heinous act, which, that's what they had in common. And of course, May was there for Elena in that time. And then it got a little heated when the fate of Coulson was at hand, and May was a little not nice to you several times when she was like, we're saving Coulson.
That's that.
We're saving Coulson, and if you're not on board with that, don't be here when we come back. Basically telling her to fuck off the first time. And then in the last episode, when they were figuring out what to do with the odium, May just fucking smashes it on the floor, and Elena has this emotional breakdown. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but I remember how funny it was when May just fuck this shit, and then she just threw the damn odium on the floor, and it shattered into a million pieces, and so did Yo-Yo's heart. So it was kind of bad at the end for those two. But it got better, and one of the strengths of season 6 was to see those two in action together, because they were the primary, I guess you can say, generals of the S.H.I.E.L.D. team that stayed on Earth while everyone else was out in space looking for fits. So we got to see a lot of Elena and May in the field together throughout all of last season. So they got to know each other better, and they grew closer together. So I think that all of that was paid off in this episode. Of course, what binded them together as far as their arcs is that they both suffered, they both went through life-changing events at the end of last season. So you had Yo-Yo, who, was under the assumption that something in the Shrike, as it was being broken down by her body, that affected her ability to use her inhuman gift. At the same time, May was weirdly turned into an empath by crossing a dimension. And I have to be honest, you and I weren't crazy about that at first. It seemed really just random.
Yeah.
But I think as the weeks have gone by, I've seen how they've been able to use that with May, with who she is and who she wants to be. And I think it's worked out pretty well. I mean, we had a few weeks back with that tense exchange with Coulson. We're seeing as though even she said in this episode with May, as the weeks go by, she feels more and more like herself. And it's an interesting dichotomy where she's beginning to feel more like herself, and at the same time, her empathic abilities are growing and growing.
Yeah.
Where she mentions in the beginning of the episode that she basically felt Mac and Yo-Yo having sex in the lighthouse, which is very invasive. But like May says, it wasn't all bad. So she must have felt something really exciting in that exchange. So to me, the weirdest thing that they've made this season was basically turning May into an empath, but I've been loving how they've handled it. Like, it's really worked its way into the plot. And as far as character is concerned, well, May is, as Jiaying says, is the perfect person to help Yo-Yo, because of course they find out and there wasn't nothing physical. And you know what? I was so happy that it wasn't anything physical. And I think it kind of vindicates you, David. You've been saying on this show for weeks now that it was a psychological thing.
Actually, so I really like how creative they gotten with May's like empath abilities and all that. Like, it's really great. But I actually got it wrong. They made the opposite of what I thought was happening. Okay. So I thought Yo-Yo was a physical problem, while May's was a psychological problem. But really, it was the other way around. Yeah. So, and like I was freaking out when I watched the episode, and they were like, "No, yeah, it's all in your head," and I'm like, "Oh my god, how did I get it so wrong?" It seems so obvious too, and that's the great thing about the show though too. It's the fact that they just did something completely different than what I thought.
They upend your they subverted your expectations. Yes. There, I used the dirty word.
Yeah.
I really hate though. I really do hate how that's become a dirty word, and I find it so moronic because it's not as if Rian Johnson invented the fucking term or the damn subverting expectations. Like, I mean, at least we forget the Russos have kind of been known for doing that in their Marvel films. They do upend expectations, and so have Jed Whedon and Marissa Tancharoen and Jeffrey Bell in this show. What's synonymous in the DNA of this program is the tendency to upend expectations every single week lately, but year. So like the idea that's like a bad term now is it's so enraging, because I think the stupidity of it is just, it's so moronic, because a lot of these people would praise the Russos for their Marvel films for that very basis of upending expectations. So that frustrates me. But you're so right. The thing about May is that it is a physical thing, but it also translates into being a psychological thing too, because it's her emotions that's being messed with as well, because of this ability that she has. But then also, and not to contradict you, but I could have sworn you did say initially back in episode 1 or 2 that part of what was happening with Yo-Yo was a psychological thing. That it could also be physical, but maybe also psychological.
I don't remember, but maybe I did.
I mean, the tape is there. We could go back and listen to it, but I just won't. Maybe I could, but I could have sworn I did remember you saying that there were some, like, a lot of the team was going through some trauma, psychological things. And I love Jiaying just like shooting Yo-Yo down. Look, just because I hate that saying it's all in your head. And I mean, yeah, that's who Yo-Yo is. And like, she doesn't want to, Yo-Yo and May hate those kind of problems because they perceive it as being weak, and they're definitely not weak. But, when Jiaying says, just because it's psychological doesn't make it any less real. And people need to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, in today's society, especially now with, depression rates going through the roof because we're in a fucking pandemic, people need to hear that. Just because you're going through what you perceive as something in your head does not make it any less real.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And of course, it makes May is the perfect foil for this, then, because with her abilities, she can guide basically Elena through this situation. And it's an interesting thing, and this is where I'll be injecting some criticism on the part of others. So, and I'll tackle them one by one. Some people were a little bit thrown off by the flashbacks to what would seemingly be like random characters, and then into the deep, because when May and Yo-Yo are sparring to kind of get somewhere with this,
Mm-hmm.
we see flashbacks to Ruby, to Tess from season 5, and then further back into her uncle, who it's revealed that she feels guilty for causing his death.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little thrown off, but then I remember, oh wait, no, I know what this is. So and it actually creates, and they could have flashback to more characters, but they didn't because, for time. But it actually does make sense. And it creates a line of people who have inadvertently or indirectly have died because of Elena, and who she blames herself for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ruby, that was the most direct because she cut her throat open. So, I mean, that one was the most...
But Ruby cut off her arm, so it's fine.
I mean, we're going to take that mentality, but, it is... that was, I think, one of the first ones that we got a glimpse of, and to because Yo-Yo was very unapologetic about that when she did it, but she's come to regret it, and of course May, feeling that, but then also knowing she doesn't have to feel it because she's an empath. She knows what that feels like. She didn't want to kill that little girl, back in Bahrain. So it works on so many levels there. But then we get a flashback to Tess, and I think people get confused there because so we're Tess, basically being hung at the lighthouse. Why would Yo-Yo care about that? Because she caused that death to happen. So in that situation, remember, Flint was going through the mist, and he went through Terrigenesis. And as Flint was about to basically be unveiled, Yo-Yo used her powers. Hell. I'm sorry, I'm just... recapping it, something just occurred to me that's actually kind of awesome. I didn't even see it there. So the 3 examples that we see here, Yo-Yo, at least with Ruby and Tess, she's used her powers to indirectly kill. And then in the original, I mean, in the scene where she's young, She basically does what she does with her powers, is that she gets out of the closet, she gets the cross, and then she comes back as she's unseen. So now I didn't pick up on that previously, but now, okay, now I see it there. Yeah. So with Tess was closest to Flint, and the Kree knew that. And because Tess wouldn't tell the Kree where Flint was, they killed her. And so there's that. There was also... I believe either it was her cousin or it was her brother in the episode that we first met Yo-Yo back in season 3, where they're stealing arms from the corrupt police, and they kill him when they subdue Hunter and Bobby, if you recall, and because they show his body to her in the Zephyr. So when you think about the brother, the uncle, Tess, Ruby, and Keller. Also Keller, Keller, which was her boyfriend for like 4 episodes, and then he was killed back in the beginning of season 6. Who I would assume also she feels responsible for. He was mentioned in this episode when she said that a friend of mine was killed by the poison, the Shrike. She feels responsible for not being able to save. So it's like there is actually a long trail of bodies that Yo-Yo feels very guilty about. So yeah, I appreciated that. I think it was nice to give, a pause and to kind of recall on Yo-Yo, because again, Yo-Yo is not big on emotions, the same as May. And so it helps to give context to these moments. But what I really loved about it is that it wasn't the fact that she needed to forgive herself for those moments. It's that because of moments like that, especially when she used her powers to indirectly get others killed, and because of that one instance all the way back as a little girl, and she felt guilty about for getting her uncle killed like that, she's always held herself back. She's always held herself back because she was afraid of what more hurt she could do. And so the reveal it being that she's Yo-Yo, and she got that name because she goes back and forth like a yo-yo with her super speed.
Yeah.
But she was able to unlock a new part of herself by finally accepting herself, accepting that she doesn't have to hold back. And it also brings back earlier this season when they kept saying bounce back, bounce back. Remember back a few episodes where Mac would say, because you always bounce back. She didn't have to. Yes.
So with May and Yo-Yo, May is the perfect person to help her get through this whole thing, but also like the way they did it in that they want to spar. They're not the type to just sit down and talk about their feelings.
Right.
I just found it to be really funny, and I mean you usually see that in like other shows and all that. But this one was really great. But what I liked about it though too is that when she realizes that she doesn't really need to bounce back, but she just needs to move forward.
Yes,
is basically what it is.
Yes,
what her powers represented in that moment. So I never saw it. For me though, I saw it as she doesn't necessarily have to forgive herself. Like obviously she does.
Yeah,
but like she accepts what she did.
Yes,
and now she doesn't need to like go back on like her impulses now.
Right.
She just needs to move forward and just go with whatever decision she's made. And I think that's really great.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily referenced in the flashbacks, but you can also throw in the fact that parts of her may regret her. It was really sad, but like I think she still feels like guilty about, because she even felt the need to clarify to Coulson, I was never rooting for you to die at the end of season 5. Like she kind of threw herself into being a black sheep with the S.H.I.E.L.D. team, because it seemed as if she was rooting for Coulson to die when she thought, basically she was just wanting the world to survive. And we even saw that guilt manifest at the end of that episode in season 5, where Coulson basically faints and he's dying, and then she's trying to resuscitate him by beating us by doing, I don't know, I think she was doing CPR or something. So there's a lot of guilt there with Yo-Yo, and no, I agree with you. It's about moving forward, which is what we're all about to do, right? With the show reaching its conclusion. But I thought it was a very powerful moment for her, and yeah, I to me, as far as like how it was handled, I thought it was very well done. If anything, I guess my biggest criticism would be, I wonder what it would have looked like if the whole episode was Yo-Yo and May. Kind of like how, Deke and Mac had last week. But then I say that while also loving how it was handled already here, and overall loving the episode in general. But that's it. But I think it was very, very well done. And now Yo-Yo is supercharged for the finale.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm really curious what's going to happen to her though too, and I wonder if it's going to be something that the Chronicons will know, or like
maybe not. You know what's interesting? Not to cut you off, but because you referenced this, I think 2 weeks ago, when Max said that we lost our strongest fighter in front of her face.
Yeah.
ironically, well, it seems as if that's no longer true. Because if Yo-Yo can just get to one point without having to snap back, I mean...
Oh my god. Especially the way they like showed it. Like literally like time stops when she does it. And ding.
Yeah.
And and it would be cool too if they get creative with the speed, like what they do with the Flash. But also, I saw a clip of that scene where like she uses her power finally, and all the comments were like, "Was the Flash theme playing while she was doing that?" And I noticed it too. It sounded it sounded very, very similar to when Flash runs in the show.
It might, but that's the theme they've been using for a while, though.
Really?
I'll find some clips, but no, I don't know if this was established in season 3 or in season 4, but Bear McCreary did create a theme for her, because there's also like Daisy has her theme, especially when she's using her powers, but Elena has one as well, and it's been around for years. It didn't sound any different. It could in general sound closest to how the Flash is, because remember that Bear McCreary does that all this season. When the Chronicoms appear, it's bum 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 bum. It's Terminator.
Oh, it's Terminator. No, and I don't blame them for like making it sound similar, because like what else can you do when like someone has speed powers and all that? Yeah, especially because like it sounds like kind of like pulses going through. Like at least that's what it sounds for me in the music, and I think that's the best way to like portray speed.
Yeah. One other thing, with Yo-Yo, I feel it also kind of that moment really, because I'm sure she was raised Catholic. It really puts the importance of not that individual cross, but it could be that cross. I don't know, but remember back in season 3, she gave a cross to Mac. And remember that it was, so there was a cross that she gave to Mac, I think, and then it was switched around through Daisy, because remember the cross was a big part of like Daisy's vision of somebody dying in a Quinjet in space with the cross being there, and it would go from Simmons to Fitz to Mac to Daisy back to Lincoln. Finally, they were playing around with that. There was this instance where I can think Mac was trying to return the cross rosary basically to Elena, and Elena was like, "This is not a lucky rabbit's foot. This is the symbol of faith. Who would return such a gift?" So, also playing on how much importance she puts on that symbol anyway. Again, reaching back to elements of the show we never thought we'd see again, but doing it very, very well. We did get to see some cool visual effects this episode. When May and Yo-Yo, when the fucking Zephyr just appear out of nowhere, like, oh shit, we gotta like back up here and like hurry and then dock before it jumps back into the future. That was very, very well done. Remind me and believe me, I tried to remember. I couldn't even bring myself to do a YouTube search because I didn't care about Iron Fist. Did they top the Iron Fist visual effect? Because Korra had this ability where her fist lighted up and she basically not smashed, but she burned one of Jia Ying's assistant's face. While doing so, and it looked very cool, that visual effect, but I don't remember how did that look did that look better than the actual Iron Fist VFX from season 1? I don't know about season 2, but season 1 I don't remember him using that at all, except like the last episode.
I'm not sure. I have to rewatch the S.H.I.E.L.D. episode, but I remember an Iron Fist though. It looked really cool because like it wasn't just like the hand. It didn't look bad.
No, by all means.
An Iron Fist. It wasn't like the fist was glowing or like being super bright. No, it was just like it's like you ever put like a flashlight through your hand or something. Yeah, and you can kind of like see your hand glowing. But with this one though, you see like the bones on the inside,
Yeah.
and also like the muscles bright lighting up too. So like that looked cool. This one, I mean, from what I remember, it didn't really look like her fist was lighting up. It was more like she was going to create a blast.
Right.
I don't know if I saw something different, but I mean, if I had to choose, I think Iron Fist.
I don't remember though. I mean, to
Mhm.
me, it looked better than Iron Fist, but then again, I can't remember what that looked like.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess a side by side comparison would help.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have to rewatch it.
I was gonna say something and then I forgot. Let's wrap back to the Zephyr. Some other things I've noticed. So, okay, I'm very glad I read the description and it was confirmed, because some people were speculating on social media, and I was like, no, don't do this. I don't think my heart can handle this, and I don't know how it would work creatively since we've already done this before, but here it is. A lot of people have been speculating for weeks that Coulson has been corrupted by Sybil. I got a weird feeling from Coulson the first time I saw this, but then when I watched it again, he's just having a really like existential identity crisis at this point. That's what's going on.
Yeah, that's what I saw it as too.
He's kind of bummed.
Yeah.
Like in a big way. It's like he feels a little nihilistic at this point. It's like, because he was like, he was Coulson, and then, a year and a half in a fucking TV, I think, can do shit to you. I mean, I think he said it himself last episode where he said, I'm going to be honest, I've been doing some soul searching here, literally. In Coulson's case, no, because I was afraid they were going to do the whole like double cross Coulson thing, but no, I think that this is just the progression of Coulson's arc this season is like he's going through it bad now. Yeah. It's like he's feeling the feels, and he's well, I mean, tell me how you read it.
No, yeah, I read it as like him just having an existential crisis. Like he's debating with himself whether he's just a bunch of ones and zeros, or is he actually someone with the soul?
Yeah.
And usually we always like get other characters to like have that debate and all that. But when it's like the actual robot itself, they always just go with, no, I'm a real person. So it's kind of nice to see the perspective of like, no, this robot person has no idea what to call himself and all that.
He's a little butthurt. I mean, yeah. It's just like he got really upset when Sybil was like, "You're not a person." Coming off the heels of May, it was like a simulated personality like you, and then being trapped in a fucking TV for a year and a half with nothing but like crickets, pornos playing in the TV, and then constantly being forgotten. Having to be wheeled into the conversation. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, I'm sure it was a depressing year. How he says that he was thirsty, because he still feels those things. He does simulate those things, whether he, wants to do it or not. I mean, it is Coulson. It is his personality. I wonder how they're going to conclude this arc, but I am happy that we're getting some movement on it, and that we're not just going to like, oh, it's Coulson and everything is fine. No, it really, with this being a Chronicon version of Coulson, it also is, doing a lot of, work with him as a legacy character, because it is being the last season. This may be the last time we ever see Coulson. And we're really kind of figuring, we're getting now to the heart of who Coulson is, and who he always has been. Interestingly enough, the title of next week's episode is called As I Have Always Been. So I wonder if that plays into it. Coulson in the description is going to be playing a supporting part with Daisy in what's going on there. So, and again, I love moments with Daisy and Coulson.
Yes.
When they're together here, and I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with her and with Sousa, because they're teasing something. I don't know what it is they're teasing, but they're teasing something, because I mean, she herself even mentions as he walks by, like, I'm glad he's here. Coulson's like, I'm glad he's here too. And then when everything's all fixed and she goes back into the healing chamber, he looks after her. Like, I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm open to it and seeing where it goes. I don't know if they're gonna land on friendship or romance. I'm open to either.
Yeah,
I'm open to explore to see what's gonna happen here. But I'm sensing a growing fondness between those two.
I think just because we're in that like teasing part, like once we see like what is going to happen, like if they are in a relationship, I'm sure they can just write it in a way that we can just be like, oh yeah, this is a great couple.
Yeah.
So we just it's really hard to know. But also I think it's also just because Daisy has had like multiple boyfriends.
Oh yeah, well,
that just didn't end well. So I think we're just kind of like in that thought bubble right there too.
I will say, I really loved in the beginning of the episode where the Quinjet docks back with the Zephyr and May and Yo-Yo have retrieved Mac, Coulson, and Deke. I love Mac's completely stoic face when he asks Simmons, "What's the problem?" The look on his face, it's like, "All right, what's the shit this week?" Like he's so fucking done. He is so fucking done. Like, that was like the most uninterested face I've seen. It's like, all right, I've accepted this is my life.
Yeah.
What's the problem now? You know?
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, but speaking of Sousa, wonderful moments this week with Sousa. Big moment, but before we get to that, there was a wonderful exchange between him and Deke and Enoch that I think was one of the most hilarious moments in the series' entire history. Deke, he's just trying to be nice, but he came off a little patronizing there when he said to Sousa, "We need to back up." They were trying to see if they turned everything on and off. First rule of IT: turn everything on and off again to see if that would, turn off the jumper. And then he was like telling Sousa to back up because electricity is bad.
He's just like, I'm not from the Stone Age, dude.
No. Specifically, do I look like a Neanderthal to you? And then without missing a beat, fucking Enoch, who has spent time with fucking Neanderthals because he's been here throughout all these millions of years. It's like Enoch immediately like, I've spent time with Neanderthals. You lack the proper brow ridges. And the comedic effect of this, the camera cuts back to to Sousa and to Deke. Sousa's just in disbelief, and then like Enoch, and Deke is just frozen. Like some of the facial expressions from Deke are on fire this episode because Deke's he's like staring at him like in a shocked, like I don't know what to fucking say to that reaction. And then it happens again later on when Yo-Yo and May come back. And Enoch is, we are seconds away from catastrophic failure. Then the camera like swings to Deke, and it sticks there, I think, for a good, 10 seconds. Again, Deke just frozen completely by what Enoch just said, and then with him turning away from Enoch into the camera. Oh, that's very comforting, Enoch. Thank you very much. Jeff Ward is doing great stuff, even when he's not the center of attention, and not always to comedic effect. It was an emotional moment between Fitz and Simmons. Well, Fitz not being there, but Simmons recording like a final message of sorts to Fitz, and then it was a wonderful touch with Deke listening to that, and I thought it was just us who was getting emotional at that. It was a wonderful moment with Elizabeth Henstridge as Simmons, but then. Man, Jeff Ward really delivers the subtle facial expressions. Like, he got choked up listening to that, and I think it further added weight to that to that scene, and then also to Deke. I love Deke.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, the funniest character, I guess. Also with Sousa, he finally got a prosthetic leg.
Yes.
Oh my god, I said this a few episodes ago. It's like, give him something so he can be more useful. I mean, he was great in this episode too. Like, he was like really preparing the whole team for like danger and shit.
Right.
Like, I thought that was really cool.
That moment served as a wonderful reconciliation between Sousa and with Simmons, because they had kind of got into it a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah,
and you got the feeling that Sousa had intended to, but never got around to it. But of course, with the wonderful gesture of the prosthetic leg, really apologized and made no excuses for his outburst against her a few episodes back with not knowing how the time machine worked exactly. And that she didn't deserve that. And with Simmons, like, not holding it against him, it's like, we took you out of your time. You didn't ask for that. But it is a wonderful gesture. And now, so I don't know how prosthetics work back in the 1940s. I guess it was just a peg leg that he had, or like a it was a very, very like basic what he had. I don't know. Like, I thought what had happened is that part of his leg was like mauled, and so he couldn't walk straight up. But I guess he did lose like his lower half of his leg, right?
I actually have no idea. I was thinking that the entire time. Even right now, I'm like, did they cut off his leg? Like, I didn't know.
I feel maybe. I mean, no, not during the events of this episode. So maybe it could go back to the story that. Well, I don't know. I think Sousa answered this a few weeks ago, right? When he was telling Daisy the story of how he was being carried back from, his injuries and everything, and how he woke up with, his leg gone. So I guess they did answer this question. I just the visual never came to my mind that he lost like half of the leg, I guess.
Yeah, same. So it's like, I've been confused for the longest time, but like, yeah, it makes sense if it was a prosthetic leg that he's had the whole time, or like, you know what I mean. But yeah, no, again, I'm really glad that he finally has a good working leg. So
yeah, I'm sad the show is ending. I really am, because man, this is so good. This is really so good. And I also look, I mean, you have characters like Sousa who have basically joined the cast at this point, and they're doing wonders. With that character. I will say it was used to great effect, the suspense in this episode, because it did get quite dire. Like, you felt the weight of potentially losing the Zephyr, which is basically their home. So that was dark. So with all that happening, it didn't work. Oops. And now they're in, I guess, a time loop of some sorts, based on the previews.
A time loop, a time dimension, I guess. It also looks, you saw like that dimension that they're on, right? It actually kind of looks like the one from Legends of Tomorrow, that CW show. Only theirs is like, it looks more like a goo that they're on,
right?
Whereas this one, it looks more cosmic, like you see stars and shit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I am so pumped for this week's episode for so many reasons. I love the focus on Daisy and Coulson. The concept of this episode looks outstanding. The previews looked horrific in the best way possible. It's going to be a bottle episode, with it being on the Zephyr, so it'll be claustrophobic for sure. And it will be the debut, the directorial debut of Elizabeth Henstridge on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She is, of course, plays Gemma Simmons, and she's been shadowing certain directors for years now, so she's doing a big episode based on what I am reading, which she says will include more information about Fitz, some, as she teased, from Fitz himself, whatever that means. So, yeah. I'm really curious though, because usually since they've been going like ridiculous a bit or fun with these episodes, I wonder if they're gonna do the whole like she's having fun during this time loop, or are they just gonna go straight with it's just one dire situation after the other, and
the more time loop she goes by, the more maybe hurt she gets, or the more damage the Zephyr gets, or whatever. So I'm really curious. I'm also curious, like, what her arc is going to be in this episode.
Yeah.
Just because, like, it makes sense for May and Yo-Yo what their arc is going to be, which is fixing whatever problems they have. And then with Mac, I wouldn't say it was really an arc. It was just more like, it's just like a situation that he just had to get through,
Right.
Like he's still the same old Mac in the end of it.
Right. So again, the difference between a character arc for the character or a story arc for the character. I don't know what it's going to be, but again, as the weeks go by, I mean, she's probably biting herself for not killing Malik, because here we go again. The Maliks are back. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, they fucked with her family. Literally, this time they fucked with her family, even earlier than they were expected to, because of the Maliks this time. So that's going to come into... we're going to get some big Daisy stuff coming. I mean, we have Jai Ying in play, so I'm not worried about that. They have been saving her for, I think, the end of the series. It's not as if she's been on the sidelines, but she hasn't necessarily had a story or a character arc, but I think we're about to get that. I mean, aside from the whole like dynamic with her and Sousa and the stuff at the beginning with, whether or not to change time, which I think she's been proven right on that in some instance, even though at that moment it wasn't the right decision to make, because that was exactly what the Chronocoms wanted. But what have you? I don't know. But it's about to get really good. Not that the show has, like, I think slowed on, like, its momentum. Like, there are, seasons of S.H.I.E.L.D, and then there are some weeks where, all right, we slow down a little bit and we get into the nitty gritty, and then we pick back up, but they're going at it full steam ahead. While still not only, like, delivering, like, on the plot and trajectory of the episode, but they're also delivering on, I feel, great character episodes like this one. And I thought it was very, very well done. And so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and leave it there. Thank you all for listening. Catch us here under our big, beautiful red spotlight with more episodes of Beyond the Shield and more. Thank you, David, and we'll see you all. And thank you all for listening, of course. Thank you, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.